Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Clinical and Translational Science Collaborative of Cleveland, we welcome you and thank you for joining us for our Women's History Month celebration. This month, we'll sit down with 4 leading ladies at each of our hospital affiliate institutions to learn about their journey to leadership, how they elevate research as a priority at their institution, and ways they personally and professionally infuse principles and values of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Before we begin, we'd like to share a bit about the CTSC. The Clinical and Translational Science Collaborative of Cleveland, or CTSC, is a collaborative among Case Western Reserve University and its affiliated hospital systems, the Cleveland Clinic, MetroHealth, University Hospitals, and the Louis Stokes Veterans Administration Medical Center. We aspire to be a catalyst for high-quality clinical and translational research, both locally and nationally, by changing the culture and environment of biomedical research, sharing resources and expertise, and streamlining the research process to move translational research from bench to bedside and to the community. Today, we celebrate and meet Dr. Airica Steed, President and CEO of the MetroHealth System. As the first woman, Black person, and first nurse to serve as President and CEO of the MetroHealth System, Dr. Airica Steed is fighting passionately to reverse racial and disparities to make sure every person in Cuyahoga County and beyond has an equal chance at a long and healthy life. That is just one part of her bold vision for the future of the $1.7 billion, 8,000 plus employee safety net health system. Dr. Steed became MetroHealth's leader on December 5, 2022, after serving as Executive Vice President, System Chief Operating Officer of Sinai Chicago Health System and President of Mount Sinai and Sinai Children's Hospital. As a proud fourth-generation nurse, her initial vision for MetroHealth is focused on 4 key principles: excellent patient care, innovation, accelerating growth, and health equity. She plans to turn that vision to reality by using her favorite leadership tools, partnering with others, and listening. A listening and engagement tour, the central piece of her 100-day plan, has her in ongoing meetings with employees throughout the health system, leaders throughout the state, and community members throughout Cuyahoga County. At Sinai Chicago, Dr. Steed led a multifaceted clinical, operational, financial, and cultural transformation that accumulated over $200 million in improvements over 3 years. She did that while radically improving quality indicators and reducing hospital-acquired infections and mortality rates by 40%. It was that work, along with the turnaround of Sinai Chicago, that led Crane's Chicago Business to name her one of its notable Black leaders and executives of 2022, and convinced Modern Healthcare to list her as one of its top 25 innovators and a minority leader to watch in 2020. Becker's Hospital Review recognized her as well as one of 75 Black healthcare leaders to know in 2022. Before joining Sinai Chicago, she was Senior Vice President, Operations at Presence Health, Chief Experience and Administrator Office at University of Illinois Health System, and one of the first Chief Patient Experience Officers in the country. Vice President, Clinical Operations and Professional Services and Operations at Advocate Health System, the largest integrated health system in Illinois, and a senior consultant and engagement leader at PricewaterhouseCoopers. She holds a doctorate of education in ethical leadership from Olivet Nazarene University, a Master of Business Administration from Governors State University, and a Bachelor of Science Nursing from Rush University. She is also pursuing a Master's in International Relations with a focus on healthcare from Harvard University Extension School. Dr. Steed, do you ever sleep?
I think sleeping is overrated, but honestly, I'm so excited and so motivated that it keeps me up at night for certain.
Absolutely. So let's look back at your childhood. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Honestly, growing up around a family of nurses and individuals in healthcare, I never imagined or dreamed about a career where I was not on the forefront of healthcare. So it was implanted at me at a very early age. But I was also surrounded by some major trailblazers and some individuals that were self-made entrepreneurs. So I really come from 2 ends of the spectrum. So I have a 4 generational lines of nursing. So I always saw myself in the nursing profession. But I also saw, as I was growing up, I was mesmerized by a lot of the men in my family who really built themselves from nothing. And and certainly passed on a legacy in my family. So I landed exactly where I was meant to be, and I truly believe that this has been a calling from the start. So I always had an imagination, and I always imagined myself as carrying a briefcase in whatever I did, but I knew it was going to be in a healthcare setting. So I landed as a leader in nursing and in healthcare. So I think it is divine order.
Absolutely. I love that you brought up the entrepreneurship piece and how integral that has been on the version of you that we get to experience today. But if you had to pinpoint who or what have been the strongest influences on the version of you that we do get to experience today?
You know, I think that that's a great question. And I think that many of the influences that I've had in my life really stems from my youth and my childhood. So I got to run around the halls in the hospital with my mother coming up, who was a very dedicated and influential nurse. So I got to shape myself in a healthcare path through my mother, through my late grandmothers, through all my aunts who are in healthcare, but also my father. He was a self-made entrepreneur, and I got to sit on his lap growing up and typing on the computer and pretending as if I was doing some great work of some type of magnitude. But all of those have been seeds that were planted in me that truly inspired me to become who I've become. And every single one of both my life experiences as well as my professional experiences and even work experiences, even early on as I started out a job at Wendy's, which was my first job, has planted some type of seed in me that I've carried forward and even used a skill set to this day. So all of those life experiences, good, bad, ugly, everything in between, has really shaped who I've become as a leader.
Now, you've been quoted as stating that your personal mission is to continue to give the voiceless a voice, unmute the muted, and provide a seat at the table for those who have been silenced. Can you explain how you developed those tenets?
So a lot of this has been based on my family story, and unfortunately for me, I've had some very painful experiences in my own life. So I've lost too many loved ones far too soon as a byproduct of what I consider to be healthcare disparities, healthcare inequities, just being mistreated from a healthcare sense. And just to give a personal example, I lost my mother. I was only 23 years old when she lost her life. She was 46 years old. That it turned out to be a rare form of leukemia that she ended up passing away from. But only first, she was misdiagnosed twice. There was many delayed aspects of her care and treatment, and certainly a lot of miscommunication along the way. And where I was on the receiving end of this, it really felt like I had no voice. I had no power in that particular moment. That spilled over into me witnessing several instances of other family members going through similar situations and experiences. Both of my grandmothers, my maternal as well as my paternal grandmothers, lost their life from breast cancer. And with that being said, I also experienced various circumstances and hiccups in the healthcare system where, again, I felt like the family, the patient, and collectively, we just had no voice. We were not heard. So no matter how loud we spoke, it just went into the universe and wasn't well received. And I felt like we were not a part of that journey and part of that care delivery experience. And then more recently, and very unfortunately, I lost my younger sister at 39 years old after being denied a basic screening 2 years prior to being diagnosed with breast cancer that unfortunately ravaged her body and took her life. Again, examples of being muted, unheard, voiceless. So I'm extremely passionate and motivated to really change that narrative, to really fix the brokenness of our system that essentially puts us in a position where we feel like we're not being heard all the way, or we feel like things are not well articulated to a point where we can properly understand and actually be partners and allow the opportunity to be advocates in our own care delivery experience. So I've taken all of those experiences for me, and I've shaped it in a way in which how I lead. And I'm always quoted as well of saying, I truly believe that this is a calling and a true purpose in what I'm leading today, to really shape the narrative in a different way, to offer up seats at the table for those who traditionally would not have a seat at the table, and to allow an opportunity to really listen and lean in intently and really reshape the improvements that we need to have around those dynamics.
Thank you so much for your vulnerability and for sharing those personal stories, because they absolutely shape who we are and how we show up in the world and at work. What recommendations do you have for women in healthcare about developing a personal mission statement as they navigate their careers?
So I would say this first and foremost, women in leadership roles absolutely have a voice. And I think that women in leadership need to feel empowered. They need to feel courageous to use their voice. It's not the fact that they don't have one. Is the fact that they have to be intentional about really using that to shape whatever narrative makes sense to them and what they're passionate about, what they feel like their purpose is, and really lean in all the way, and do not let perfection get in the way of progress that you can make in really being able to realize what that personal mission is. And I always share my personal story because it's most certainly incubated and is fueled based off of my own personal lived experiences. And I would just promote and encourage that any woman leader, they need to do the same. Really tap what motivates you, tap what encourages you, tap what really fuels you, and where do you see your voice being heard and amplified in a different type of way. And so I'm just encouraging us to be much more courageous in it and unmute our own voices, because we have a lot to say, and we certainly need to be heard, and we certainly need to not be invisible at the table as we're having plenty of intentional conversations on being the change that we will actually want to see. And we need to see much more women leaders across the board, across many industries, in order to really shape what representation needs to look like.
Incredible. Thank you. Now, how would you describe your leadership style and why it works? And I see you all over LinkedIn, and you're just everywhere. You're visible, you are accessible. So let's talk a little bit more about how you would describe your leadership style and why it's effective.
You know, and I think you just highlighted a few components of it. So I've always seen myself as the people's leader. So I've never been one that needs to take a solid position on leading from the front. I like to lead from behind, because this allows me an opportunity to set a pace and be able to complement my team and really lead my team in a much more effective way. But I've always also been described as being a servant leader. I've been one that most certainly I get into the trenches. I roll my sleeves up. I put a premium on listening. I put a premium on learning. I put a premium on unlearning, because there's a lot of bad habits that we can bring to the forefront that we need to really walk away from. But I'm also a visionary and very, very transformational. So I like to challenge the status quo. I certainly don't like to sit still. I love being a trailblazer and being able to go down non-traditional paths and widen that front door for others to really follow. So I really believe in developing that next generation, opening up more doors for other people, and really paying it forward for other people as well. So I really recognize and I take heed, and I fundamentally appreciate those who have leaned down and allowed their shoulders for me to really step upon as I've ascended up into the leadership rank and file. So I appreciate that, and always take a moment in whatever position I'm in, to really pay it forward for other women leaders thrive and survive and succeed. So that's just a little bit about my style, and why it works is more so I'm extremely self-reflective. So I always take stock and take a moment to breathe a minute, take an assessment of what the situation is, so that situational awareness, and make adjustments along the way. So situational leadership is absolutely important as well, because you never know when you're going to have to make an adjustment and have to pivot, and you have to be able to manage your way through that.
Most certainly. And I am really fascinated by a couple of things that you said, but I want to focus on the unlearning part.
Mhm.
And what do you see as the future of healthcare? So if you could answer first, what do we need to unlearn? And then how does that play into what you see as the future of healthcare?
Yeah, yeah. So really, when I'm speaking to unlearning, I'm talking about really removing any type of baggage or bad habits or anything that you would perceive as bringing the spirit of what you need to do down. And for me, I've been through so many different experiences, and I recognize that everything is not a one size fits all. So you can't just force a square into a round hole. You can't force change. You can't force the time it takes to really navigate through trauma or navigate through crises. So for me, unlearning is really a measure of really just taking stock of your situation, and don't force yourself or don't force change if the situation is not ready for that. As I see the future of healthcare, I'm rather encouraged. So the silver lining that has occurred through the wake of the COVID pandemic is forced us to get out of our own way. And it has forced healthcare to really accelerate it at lightning speed. So for us in healthcare, we're really building this plane and flying it at the same time. No one had a playbook, so we really had to make this up as we've gone along. But I'm encouraged by the fact that healthcare is speeding up with other industries. So I'm always on record of saying that healthcare is probably 10 years behind most advanced industries. So the future of healthcare is most certainly going to be accelerated and sped up to be in concert with other industries. But healthcare also is going to be much more accessible and at the fingertips through technology and through innovation and through research, which is what I'm excited about, being able to leverage research and leverage innovation to really allow us the opportunity to perhaps pace ourselves ahead of other industries. So I most certainly see healthcare is shifting in that way. It's going to be much more person-centered and person-focused. It's certainly going to be much more digitally or technology enabled. It's certainly going to be much more accessible. And if I have my druthers on it, it's going to be the gap is certainly going to close as it relates to health equity in the various disparities that we're actually seeing. So I think that that's going to be a first and foremost priority objective as it relates to that. And then lastly, the way I see things shifting and moving I think that there has been a priority focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I believe that healthcare, as we shape it into the future, representation is not just going to matter; it's going to be reflective in the healthcare landscape. So I think that we're going to gain some progress that we need to see there.
And since you uplifted research as one of the pivotal tenets of what will be the future of healthcare, let's talk about translation and where that fits in there. And just to define it for the group, the process of translation involves turning observations in the lab, clinic, and community into interventions that improve the health of individuals and the public, from diagnostics and therapeutics to medical procedures and behavioral changes. In what ways does your work help support its researchers through the process of translation?
So here's one of the things that I've certainly put a premium on. I believe in having a balanced approach to not just in the spirit of healthcare, focusing on clinical excellence, but I believe we need to have a balanced approach to really lifting up academic excellence, which includes research. So in the context of that, we're not going to put research and education on the back burner, because it has to be on the front burner of everything that we do. So I'm advocating for us really using research at our forefront for us to really resolve and solve some of the most complex of challenges that we're faced with. That is the future of healthcare. That's how we're going to innovate ourselves through it all. This is how we're going to be able to accelerate through that pace gap that I was really speaking of. So without research, I don't think that we exist in our ability to really fulfill that mission. So I'm advocating for that. I'm advocating for many more opportunities for us to embrace groundbreaking research. I'm extremely proud of, particularly, of where MetroHealth sits in this, and really being a leading research organization that has really brought a lot of things forward in a positive way. So I would say, first and foremost, we just need to make it a priority and not set it on the back burner. Also being able to be intentional on how we have a person-centered approach to translational research.
Now, if you had an unlimited amount of resources to ensure that research remained a priority, where would those funds and where would that capacity go towards? I know that you're really passionate about maternal and infant morbidity and mortality, and you have that new beautiful birthing center, but where would you put those resources if you had unlimited resources?
Honestly, I'm something for everybody. So at the end of the day, I do have areas that rise up to the forefront that we absolutely need to put much more emphasis on and really center our focus on. But if I had unlimited resources, everyone will get a piece of the pie, and I'll be able to have my cake and eat it too. But obviously, we have to be very balanced in the way in which we do this. So what I'm pushing for is patient-centered, person-centered excellence, but I'm also pushing for academic and research excellence. So how can we pool our funds and invest our funds in resources in the right way? So we're at the premium. We're that national model for everything that we do. And most certainly, as I dissect on some of the challenges that we have specifically, I see mom and baby health and wealth as a major emphasis. I want us to zero out the death gap that we're seeing in infant mortality. I'm a personal example of this because I'm a 2-time survivor of preeclampsia, and I know what it's like to be on that statistical side of morbidity. And unfortunately, I was very close to mortality myself. So the more and more we can learn and we can understand and we can put our translational research into practice around understanding how to navigate through these disparities, that's where I would really put the dollar on. How do we eradicate healthcare disparities for everyone? How do we zero out the death gap? How do we improve the life expectancy for those that we serve? And how do we solve for the I would say this national pandemic of mental health and addiction crisis that is out there, that's translating into so many different dynamics in our communities at large. So those are areas where I would love to pool that dollar if I was to have unlimited resources. But long and short of it, we need to really have a delicate balance so no one is left out of the equation.
As we look towards eliminating health disparities, and as you said numerous times, that person-centered, patient-centered approach to delivering healthcare, patient involvement is a critical feature of all stages of translation. And what opportunities do you see to help increase patient involvement through community outreach and engagement, et cetera, in all stages of research for those who are most underserved in our community?
So one of my top priorities is person-centeredness, patient-centeredness along the way. And I've been on record of saying from the start that I fundamentally believe in community engagement and community impact. And I see the patient, I see the community as the patient. So with that being said, and going along the same lines of some comments that I already made, we need to offer up more opportunities to really hear and heed the voice of our communities and open up more seats at the table for our community and for our neighborhoods and for our residents to be heard. And through that, we're going to be able to work through centuries of distrust. And I think part and parcel of the challenge of inclusion of patients into research is the fact that there's so much distrust that we have to navigate through. So we have to build those relationships and build up a sense of, okay, we're in this together. We are partners in this. We're advocating for you to have a voice in the mix. You're certainly being unmuted as we navigate through this. So we have to put an intentional premium on being able to do that. And then the ability for us to really shape how research falls into that will follow through those relationships and through that rebuilding of trust that has certainly waned across the board. And that helps to translate into a much better delivery outcome that we want to see, but it's going to be much more engagement in the process along the way. So I think we need to be more intentional about being partners and having a sense of empathy of what trauma our communities have experienced well over the last century, but most certainly centuries of disengagement. So we need to just start the process, and then eventually the communities will heal with that.
And when we think about trauma and healing and the type of leadership style that you have as a servant leader, how do you take care of yourself? Yeah. What does your self-care regimen look like?
Okay. So I laugh at that one just because, and I have to be, I'm fully transparent. So you see what you get when I'm actually speaking of this. I'm chuckling because there's not enough hours in a day. There really isn't. But also, balance is probably one of the most difficult challenges I've ever had to experience and I ever had to contend with as a leader. So I learn every day on how to best take care of myself in this. But I also recognize the fact that if you don't have that discipline of self-care, you can't be the leader that you need to be to others. So with this, I truly pride myself, and I've been blessed with such a phenomenal team. But I put a premium as well on surrounding myself with a tribe and building a tribe and building my own board of advisors and people that are most certainly courageous of pulling my coattail a bit and keeping me in balance and really keeping me in check. So I have a certain level of self-awareness when I've pushed it too far, but I surround myself with people who I trust and individuals who can compensate and compliment for whatever shortcomings I may have. So I think the key to that is be extremely self-aware and know where your line is and know where you've had enough. Two, be proactive in building up your own personal board of advisors and your tribe, individuals around you that you can really lean on, and it goes vice versa. It goes both ways. But this is not a one person job. This has to be a an opportunity for you to do this in unison across the board. But self-care and balance is something that I have to learn and unlearn every single day. And so I take this one day at a time, really. But I'm so spirited that I'm excited that really keeps me up at night, and it gets me up in the morning, all kinds of all times of the night. And I'm finding myself communicating with all kinds of people at 3 o'clock in the morning because they're doing the same. But that's a long-winded way of answering that, but certainly one day at a time.
I love that you talked about having a personal board of advisors. And I'm curious about how having or maybe not having sponsors has influenced your trajectory, and whether or not those sponsors play a dual role for you both personally and professionally.
Yeah. So number one, I drank the Kool-Aid a long time ago in being able to have a combination of mentors, sponsors, allies, advisors. All of that is so important in any individual's personal or professional growth. And I've had them along my journey. Even though they some of them didn't even realize that they were my allies, they were my mentors, they were my individuals that I really leaned on to really help me to navigate. But I think it's important for you to have both a formal approach to all of that, as well as an informal approach. But long and short, we don't rise on our own, and we certainly don't succeed on our own. So it's very imperative that we practice the art of sponsorship, mentorship, allyship, advisoryship, and all of those various things, because we have to pay it forward for the next generation. So that is just how we keep this moving and keep the positive momentum going along the way. But just as part of my own journey, I've had so many great people, but one person really stands out for me that really changed the trajectory of my entire career. So I was 27 years old when I was put in a position where I gained my first vice president role, and that completely changed the dynamic of my entire career. But a person had to take a risk on me. I had zero experience. I didn't have the preparation or the tools or the skills to effectively be in that role. But a person stepped up to the plate and number one, had a belief system in me before I had that belief system in myself. And then they ensured that I understood that they were going to be my safety net, and they were going to have me along the way. And most certainly they were going to challenge me as well. So it's not always the pretty conversations and the healthy conversations that you need to have. But I think it's so imperative for you to find that person who's going to be your guide, who's going to be your compass, who's going to be your safety net, who's going to allow for a safe environment, a safe psychological environment for you to grow and shape and learn and fail. And this person actually taught me that as one of my first lessons, that it's important for all leaders to become comfortable with failure and really take a introspective as well as a retrospective look back at those failures, and what you grow from that and what you take along the way is going to shape you to become a much better person and a much better leader. But I've gained that through a person who I look up to, and is my warrior, and is my guide even to this day. So I really reflect on those types of lessons.
Now, you mentioned the importance of having a safe psychological environment. We may have people on the call who are managing teams and their team members have aspirations for the C-suite, just like you.
Mhm.
What advice would you have for those individuals who are trying to create that safe psychological environment so that you can have those vulnerable conversations, especially when we're talking about our diverse identities and what we're coming to work with, who we're showing up to work as? How do you create that safe psychological environment?
I think so. Intentionality is woven into everything that I'm talking about. So it takes action. So everything that we're doing is not purely black and white. Most of what we do is actually shaded in gray. So we have to be intentional on being that type of leader ourselves. So what I learned from my 27-year-old experience, and being afforded this amazing opportunity, and being afforded this opportunity where, oh my goodness, I was put in a position where it was a lot of happenstance, but I recognized the learnings of it all. It motivated me to every single role that I've had after that, and even before that, even. But every single role I've had after that, I never start in any situation, any role, without being able to pay it forward and being able to build the same type of affordability, and same type of structure that I've had. So every position I've had forward, I've produced multiples of that experience that I had when I was 27. So I think that there needs to be an intentionality of us really leaning in and being that courageous sponsor. We have to have some intentionality of wanting to be able to take calculated risks on building people, on shaping people, on opening up the door much wider, on not wanting other individuals that are following us to have to navigate through a windy road, and have to experience adversity, and have to experience so much challenge. But even still, we want them to experience that challenge in a safe space where it's not going to impact their psyche, or it's not going to impact their self-confidence, or their courage or their motivation to want to do that. So in short, just really answering that question, I think that we have to be intentional of creating those atmospheres, creating those environments. We have to live through our actions and not just speak words about our belief system, and believing in those types of things. We really have to make it happen, and be that figure, be that power force that leans down and allows people to step on our shoulders. So that I would just say, let's be intentional about moving our industry in the direction where we want to see more people thrive, and more diverse leaders, more women leaders, more just powerhouse leaders that we want to be successful.
And as we all take in all of those gems, all of that advice, and we live through action and we're intentional, what would you like your legacy to look like?
Honestly, I think that I've been really speaking to this, but I think the legacy that we leave is, how are we contributing to the future, and how are we contributing to the next generation? So we have to recognize that everyone has climbed up on someone else's shoulders. And so I always want to lead in the way where I want to allow as many people as possible to achieve their greatest potential. Okay. And I want the next generation to live on forever. So I'm extremely proud to have been put in a position where I'm the first Black person, the first nurse, the first female to lead this storied institution. But I certainly don't want to be the last. So I want to be able to set a tone and set a legacy where we can have many more. So I want the gate wide open, and I want to make sure that I put my stamp on being able to pay it forward, being able to have a continuous legacy for those that are coming from behind.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Steed. And now the floor is open for questions. You can type them in the chat. We're happy to read them for you, or you can take yourself off mute. And while we are allowing for some time for people to think of their questions, Dr. Steed, what do you think of Cleveland, Ohio?
Oh my goodness. So first and foremost, I feel like the red carpet has been rolled out and rolled out and rolled out some more. I just love Cleveland. So I'm born and raised in Chicago, so I've always been from the Midwest, but I've never even imagined that such a wonderful city was only 45 minutes in a plane ride away, or a 5-hour drive. So I feel like I'm sprinting a marathon for certain in roller skates. I don't feel like I skipped or missed a beat at all from Chicago, but I feel very warmly welcomed into this great city and this great community. I do feel like I have my passport so I could travel from the east side to the west side. So I have my passport. But and I think I have the geography down now. So I'm just trying to calibrate myself from the Chicago geography, where the lake is east, not north. So, but outside of that, I'm just loving Cleveland. This is a foodie type of town, so I've certainly enjoyed acclimating to the foodie scene.
So I'm glad that you brought up food, because we have this Ready News health disparities feature where we ask fast 5 questions to our researchers. And one of the questions is, where's your favorite place to eat in Cleveland or Northeast Ohio? So have you identified a places yet?
So, I mean, I have several like fan favorites, but in terms of like communities, I'm a big Italian lover. So I find myself traveling often to Little Italy. So I'm always in Little Italy in every single restaurant, and I'm including this evening. I'm gonna frequent that. But I have not missed on any particular food, other than, so I do have a one vice, and in that will be the pizza scene is nothing like Chicago here, but in that I often joke as well that I had to import my jardinera peppers, because we from Chicago, we put jardinera peppers on everything. But outside of that, the food is just amazing.
Good. Now, what are 2 or even 3 final takeaways you'd like to share with the audience?
So final takeaways, and I see this as a shy audience, so hopefully I'm not going to take that as me, but be unapologetic in whatever your conviction is. So find your passion, find your purpose, find whatever rocks you and motivates you and spirits you. So just be unapologetic in it, and just just make sure that you assume the highest level in whatever it is that you're absolutely passionate about. So that would be one. The second is, and I spoke of it, it is extremely important to align yourself, find yourself in a position where you can find your sponsor, find your ally, find your mentor, or the combination of all of those things. Because I can honestly tell you, for me, it's been a magnificent experience being able to be shaped and be understood, and have someone I can lean on. And in the same breath, I would say, build your own personal board of advisors. You have to build a tribe. You have to build a community around you, that's safe, that you can safely voice whatever's on your mind. It doesn't always have to be in the space that they're actually leading in or living in, but essentially someone to help navigate you through situations. I think that is important nugget to share. And then I would also just wrap up with saying, don't be your own worst enemy. I think that women leaders especially, we have a habit of really second guessing ourselves and feeling in positions, especially when we're surrounded with a lot of men. We find ourselves in positions where we feel like imposters, and we have that imposter syndrome. So don't be your own worst enemy. Take the pressure valve off of yourself, because trust and believe there's a lot more men in situations where they feel the same way. So you don't have to be so hard on yourself that way. And then lastly, I would just say, just leave a legacy of lifting up others and allowing individuals to step on your shoulders to rise. So always pay it forward, and trust and believe is always going to boomerang right back at you.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, expertise, talent. We are so glad to have you in Cleveland and leading one of our most wonderful healthcare institutions, and being a partner of the CTSC and uplifting research and all of the things that you have done and will do. We appreciate you and honor you during Women's History Month. Thank you, Dr. Steed.
Thank you so much for having me.
So who is next? We have Dr. Cynthia Kubu for Fireside Chats with Leading Ladies in honor of Women's History Month. Dr. Kubu is a neuropsychologist, associate director of the neuroethics program in the Center for Neurological Restoration at the Cleveland Clinic, and vice dean for faculty at Case Western Reserve University in the School of Medicine. We hope to see you next Friday, March 17th. And in the spirit of what you can do today, you can schedule a ready consultation at spark.case.edu. You can sign up to attend future programming and join our listserv so that you don't miss out on future events. And you can visit our website and review CTSC DEIA resources. We'll give you a few minutes, virtual commute time. Move, breathe, engage your senses, do what you need to do. That's a term coined by Dr. Jennifer A. King. She's co-director of the Center on Trauma and Adversity and assistant professor in the Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences at Case Western Reserve University. And she's also facilitating our Engaged Break next Thursday, March 16th, during our Health Disparities Unmeeting, sparking conversation to enhance health equity research. Registration is still open and completely free. And we hope that if you have some time, you will stop in some of the virtual rooms and hear much of the great discussion, things that Dr. Steed alluded to that are things that need to be eliminated, health disparities. Thank you so much for joining us. Connect with us, email us, visit the website, and we appreciate your time. Have a great afternoon.